Over the years it's developed, but it's just writing to people that I like that show an interest, because some people just don't care, and
Yeah.
I don't
Some
care.
people
I'm
just-
not trying to force my opinion on anybody,
Yeah.
but I have an opinion. So this was May of 2013. Dear friends, I'm ready to tell you that I'm joyful. There's no other news, but with that out of the way, let's ramble together through a few pages. I really get a kick out of these letters and have thought to write to you various times in the more than a year that has eased by since the last letter. My only excuse is that it's also a kick to not write. This may be best described by copying out the poems that floated out of the radio last January as I sat clicking out this letter. This is from the collected poems of Raymond Carver, which I do recommend. Actually, there are two poems, At Least and Rain, but they meshed in my head, and in this copy is what I thought I heard when I quit writing last winter. I want to get up early one morning before sunrise, before the birds even. I want to throw cold water in my face and be at my work table where the sky lightens and smoke begins to rise from the chimneys of the other houses. I hate to seem greedy. I have so much to be thankful for already. But I want to get up early, one more morning at least, and go to my place with some coffee and wait, just wait to see what's going to happen. Woke up this morning with a terrific urge to lie in bed all day and read. I fought against it for a minute, then looked out the window at the rain and gave over. I put myself entirely in the keep of this rainy morning. Would I live my life over again? Make the same unforgivable mistakes? Yeah, given half the chance, yes. Would I abandon this letter over and over again? Yes, and for less than a half a chance. But this time it's all the way to the mailbox. I need the thrill. To begin, let me tell you that I was raised as a white boy in a small town in a time when men wore pants, women wore skirts. I was drunk was a legitimate excuse for an accident. There were three races, white, Negro, and Mexican. Homosexuality was a crime, and marijuana was an evil drug. When I saw the movie American Graffiti, I thought it was about my hometown, Delano. All my youth through my 21st birthday in the Air Force, I was a Big E from Big D, an identity that I didn't question. Then I went to college on the GI Bill at Long Beach State. By good fortune, the first class I attended and the first woman I dated were educational, so I had probably already begun to wonder about the role I was playing when my friend was arrested in the summer of 1968. Actually, he was only a casual acquaintance at the time, boyfriend of the next-door neighbor of the woman I had been pursuing for a month. The neighbor was moving out, but was sharing coffee and cigarettes with us when the phone rang in her apartment. It was her boyfriend, Myrie, calling from the jail for help. This was surprising because 15 minutes before, he had been next door helping her move. I drove her to the jail to bail him out. 2 Long Beach police had seen him carry a TV from an apartment to his car, and him being black, they did not bother to check with us next door, but arrested him for burglary. As I sat waiting at the jail, a memory came like a jolt, and I wasn't who I was. In the summer of 1957, I had a paper route that I delivered for 2 years since a friend had conned me into covering his 2-week vacation and never came back. The money was a pittance for the time and labor involved, but a treasure compared to nothing, and except for fat Sunday editions of the early mornings, I liked riding around and throwing the paper. The best part, though, was the bullshit and rubber band shooting camaraderie among the paper boys, my first entry into the wider world beyond family and school. That day, folding and bagging papers, I was carrying on with the kid on my left, Marion, who is tall, thin, 1 or 2 years my senior, with a quick wit and a ready smile. He wears the same holy t-shirt for days and glasses are missing a temple. He works to help support his family and not for blow money like me. I like him so much that I forget he is Negro, and I make some remark so casual that I can never recall exactly what, that stings so deeply, tears well as in his eyes as he says, "You're one of them." I'm stricken. I've always been us. At home and at school, it is never questioned. I am us and is we, and we repeat all men are equal and one nation indivisible and liberty with justice for all. But it's a lie if I'm them. I was 12 and I buried the awareness under layers of Big E from Big D until it exploded into my consciousness again, waiting at the jail for Myrie. About 3 years later, I was on a bus in South America. uncertain of anything. After getting my re out of jail, some more pieces of unquestioned me had come up for examination until finally nothing was certain. Realizing that was another epiphany, like Marion the paperboy telling me I was them. Only this time I embraced the awareness and took it with me to Latin America as a Peace Corps volunteer. Once there, I continued to shed identity and belief, and after half a year, I dropped the Peace Corps to just live in South America and see what happens. 9 months later, I awoke on the cushioned seat of a smooth rolling bus, free-floating in uncertainty, not tethered by identity and belief. Rick and I had been 2 months in Brazil, where everyone spoke a language I couldn't grasp. Prices had been jacked up for the carnival season, and the last 8 days had been hitchhiking and sleeping by the road, so waking in warmth to Spanish babble I could understand is pleasure that rises with the sun and is the spice that flavors my memory of Uruguay. Nothing really happens. The bus we boarded the evening before on the border with Brazil continues south through mostly uninhabited, sparse, piney woods on poor-looking sandy soil. About mid-morning, cultivated fields began to show here and there, gradually becoming more civilized until we reach Punta del Este, where the Rio Plata meets the Atlantic, and then turns east along a narrow urban strip that hugs the coast for 100 miles or so to the capital. We get down about noon and find lodging with a shower for a couple of dollars. It only gets better. Cleaned up, we go out in the afternoon and find granjas, outlets for cheeses, pickles, cured meats, milk, and all sorts of produce of the great haciendas that apparently are all there is to Uruguay outside of the urban strip that we just rode through. These delicatessens of cheap, wonderful food are almost always associated with bakeries that smell of hot breads and have display windows filled with loaves and golden rolls. As we stroll, we find the city is so small that government offices, downtown shops, the waterfront, Central Park, and the cultural center of the nation are all within a few blocks. That pretty much is my memory of the entire week in Uruguay. A bed, a shower, and delicious food at bargain prices within a few blocks of the waterfront and Central Park. Of the people we speak with, only one comes to mind distinctly now. Window shopping at one of the many leather goods stores, the first morning a young man comes out of the shop and insists, even after being told that we have no money for anything more than expensive than free, that we come in and be measured for custom-made suits. As he tapes here and there, he explains that we have arrived just too late. School started and the summer tourist season ended 2 weeks before, and we missed the festive tourist crowds that pour in from the countryside and fill the city all summer. It is to our liking. Prices are down all over town, and the waterfront and Central Park is so deserted that we have our choice of spots to eat, smoke a bit of marijuana, and absorb being in Uruguay, which is all we can afford anyway. The river looks like the ocean here, and the waterfront offers benches that overlook a narrow beach. We watch waves roll in and a few old men fish, using great long poles or casting nets on the otherwise lonely beach. If anyone stops to chat, they assure us that in summer the beach is wall-to-wall people, and it's a big party, and it's too bad we missed it. There's a bocce court, a ball court tucked in a corner of the vast, almost empty park, where a gardener tells us that it hums with people and vendors in the summer, and it's a shame we missed it. There are benches where we bask in warm sun and watch old men try and knock each other's balls around. The week from crossing the border until embarking on the overnight ferry to Buenos Aires is more a pleasant sense than a memory after so many years, but one afternoon is sharp in my mind. A few days into our stay, we visit the National Art Gallery, a house on a large garden lot that had been left to the country by someone. It's pleasant and free and small enough with 3 galleries of local artists' work to not bore. And when we exit to the rear, there's an open lawn surrounded by trees, and in the center is a pile of burning leaves. This is perfect in so many ways. I'd been more than a year in the season of tropics. It's Norman Rockwell scenic. Such burning is already banned in smoggy California, and masked in the billowing smoke, we can smoke marijuana without reeking. Then, laying on the grass, watching smoke curl up and leaves fall down, a particular leaf detaches from near the top of a tree, and I know when it breaks in the branch that it's going to come to rest on me, and it does. Wafting side to side from great height to a light on my chest, I felt blessed. 8 months later, I returned to the States, and part of that trip is on the Pan Am Highway up the spine of Central America from Panama to Guatemala. It's not been my plan, but a robbery and a government restrictions put me on a bus day after day with hours to think. I was leaving an environment where free-floating in uncertainty was easy and going to a world of tethering expectations. I decided to deal with uncertainty by weaving a reality web anchored in 5 strands of self-evident truths. All people are equal with a right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and there's no justice. You might note in the other letter that I dropped the pursuit of happiness later because you can't pursue happiness and be happy at the same time. You got to make a choice, be or not. The first hour was almost, the first 4 were almost direct quotes from the Declaration of Independence, that culmination of the age of reason, except that it says all men, not all people, are equal. That they are self-evident truths was good enough for them, for the Founding Fathers, and it would serve for me, except they are only true coupled with that there is no justice, which is as surely self-evident. When I reach the United States, I try spinning reality of those beliefs, but it isn't satisfying. After a year and a half, pursuit of happiness isn't holding up. I can't pursue happiness and be happy. I stop, literally and figuratively, and hold up in a remote sight to think, if I'm not pursuing happiness, what? What did I want? After a week of hard thought, I wanted to quit wanting. It seemed so simple. I made a list of the least that I thought it would take to satisfy every want. It wasn't a long list, mostly things I'd appreciated in Uruguay, etc. in the previous year, like running water, a comfy bed, a tight roof, a stove, a refrigerator, tasty food, things that would satisfy every want and yet not affront poverty. In the next years, I wove those desires into life on Liberty Street, and I let happen what may. It was easy, and I came to understand that I didn't have to know what made me happy if I just quit doing what I didn't like. It was easy, but it took a few years because there were layers of learned behavior to work through. But I gave up womanizing, alcohol, cigarettes, and supporting, even tacitly by silence and inaction, our American treatment of other peoples. To do the last, I wrote to religious, media, and political people using sweet reason to shift consciousness to abhorrence of rapine and murder for economic gain. No apparent success there except for distinguishing me from support, but that addicted like a drug. I needed to boost regularly. When local people began to form organized protest, I joined. It was another way to feed my habit, easier and as effective as writing to bozos with the added jolt of camaraderie. Since we invaded Iraq, Peace Fresno established regular monthly protests on the corner of a busy intersection, and Tina and I were pretty regular attenders, even so, enough so that I began to count on that monthly dose of I'm against this killing. However, the protests were halfway across town at the start of the weekend, and getting there means coordinating with Tina, a woman with a lot going on, so sometimes I missed that fix. That's why I first went to stand with Women in Black after I retired. On the first Wednesday of each month, they dress in black and they stand the noon hour at the courthouse holding signs like, "We are women in black," in silent vigil to promote peace and condemn the use of force in foreign lands. The courthouse is a pleasant bike ride away. Tina is unavailable to go with me at noon. The ladies welcome me and provide protest signs so I don't have to carry one on the bicycle. And we stand in the roofed area, shaded in summer and dry in winter. And I still write to bozos, though rarely now. And Tina and I go together to Blackstone and Shaw to demonstrate our displeasure with the way we act in the world sometimes, but I don't care if we make it or not. I've got my connection. The Women in Black I stand with are a subgroup of Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, 2 or 3 women and me in the Women in Black. Most people pass us without notice, but I've spoken a few times. The first time someone asked why, I gave the flip answer that I used a few more times, because there are no men in black. The first and second time someone tried to justify America's world role, I tried to reply using the reasoning that I had wasted before in writing to bozos. That was all in the first year, though, in a detraction. The distinction between men and women is immaterial here. We are all equal, and I am one, and our mainstays of my reality. So no more about that. No more saying because there are no men in black. Talking reason with someone who believes they know the truth from talk radio is frustrating. So I made a sign that says, "In silent mourning for American killed worldwide." And if anyone asks what I'm doing, I point to it. Talk about your high. The elation begins as I dress in black, swells on the bike ride to the courthouse, and expands as I stand vigil, so that by the time I mount up and ride off after an hour, I'm soaring. And that sort of closes this letter, because at first I told you there was really nothing to say, but I was joyful. It's true, and I'm a joy junkie. That's why I go to Women in Black and I write to you. It's a blast, and to clarify, I'm going to finish with a poem by Billy Collins, a poet you should read more works by, because he really captures the way I feel writing home from Women in Black, thinking about writing to you. This is called High. On that October morning, I was only behind a double espresso and a single hit of antidepressant. Yet, there on the shore of the reservoir with its flipped over rowboats, I felt like I was walking with Jane Austen, to borrow the jargon of the streets. Yeah, I was wearing the crown, as the drug addicts like to say, knitting the bonnet for Charlie, entertaining the troops, sitting in the study with H.G. Wells. So many ways to express that mood of royal goodwill when the gift of sight is enough for jubilation. Well, that's it. To get the full effect, this letter has to be delivered to you, so I'm closing with peace and love, Eric.